I'm singing in the shower. I'm singing in the shower.
When a child I hosed the driveway to wash off all the grease until it was quite spotless, I couldn't rest in peace. And then I'd washed the car and washed the house and washed my feet. My mother called me to her side as water filled the street. Oh, waste not, want not is the lesson I would teach. Let conservation be your guide and practice what you preach. Do not let the river unnoticed tumble by, for you never miss the water till the well runs dry.
This is the story of water. Water. It's all over this planet. The same amount since the beginning of time. There will never be more, so we must use what we have. What we drink now has run through the organs of dinosaurs and our great-great-great-grandparents. Really? What? Thank you. Water can carry many things, and it wasn't long ago that it was a major source of disease for all of humanity. Keeping it clean has been humanity's major goal to fight disease. In first world countries like here, in the United States, where cleanliness of water is no longer the issue, the desire for pure taste, smell, and clarity have created an industry of bottled waters. This is the San Gabriel Valley, where the San Gabriel River runs through a densely populated, multi-seated valley in Los Angeles County in South California. This valley, its river, and its people are like a microcosm of the whole planet. A microcosm, actually, is a, well, it's a very tiny cosm. Drinking water can be altered by climate, plants, and ground formations like mountains and flat plains. What we humans have done to our land has changed the amount of available drinking water, its quality, and its safety. Now, let's see how a river works. Where does water come from? In a system without people and people's dirt, our clean water In a system without people and people's dirt, our clean water comes from... Water evaporates from the oceans and travels in clouds in the air. And because of changes in temperatures and pressure, the water will fall to the ground. Sometimes it comes down as rain or snow, or mists. Plants are important to our water. They clean it and store it up in their tissues. This is a vital portion of our watershed, or a water bank. Plants absorb the precious liquids, use it, and then evaporate the water back into the air again. Water fell to the ground as liquid and sinks into the soil and pools up in the deep, hidden recesses of the earth. These recesses are called an aquifer.
Aquifer. Aquifer.
Yes, aquifer.
Good.
Is that clear? Thank you. Oh. Ah. Aquifer. Any deep, underground, geological formation that contains water, especially those used as sources for wells and springs. A long time ago, when water did not come in pipes to your home, your daddy would dig, or mummy would dig, down to the aquifer, aquifer, to find water to supply the needs of the home. Ah, isn't that lovely? The water doesn't settle down to an aquifer and will run down and pour into larger and larger waterfalls and creeks and streams and rivers. Finally, the river joins the ocean in a salt marsh or estuary. The sitting and seeping water is filtered clean by plants, microorganisms, and the particles of the soil itself.
Now, even though Public Works or the Flood Control District, we own all the dams, we own all the groundwater recharge facilities downstream, we don't own a drop of water behind the dam. All the water rights along the river have been claimed by other entities. And there's two organizations that own pretty much all the water rights. The first 135 cubic feet per second of water that flows in the river belongs to an organization called the San Gabriel River Water Committee, which I think Don Barrier is the representative of the committee, or Committee of 9 for short.
Well, Cogswell and San Gabriel, and Morris was built by the city of Pasadena. So with the 3 dams here on the river, there was a group formed called the San Gabriel Valley Protective Association, and they're made up of companies from Azusa down to Long Beach that have a right to basically the storm water, the water that's over the Committee of 9's water right. And this water is used to recharge the underground basins. They release water down to Morris, and then it's released out of Morris into these underground spreading grounds, recharging the aquifers.
When they built the river channel, they modified the way the water flows through the area here. We're looking at some of these accessory structures that are backup to the river levee that we'll see in a minute. But all this is regrown after they graded it out, but it's similar to what would have been here in the sense that this plant community is used to being wiped out by a flood and then recolonizing. And if you see a healthy patch of this, you'll see different ages, a group that's been wiped out recently, maybe one that grew back 15 years ago, maybe one that grew back 50 years ago, so you'll see a good mosaic.
It's mentioned that the penstocks or the tubes have backup valves that normally those backup valves are closed and the penstock pipes themselves are drained. This water that's coming out of here today is the leakage from those backup valves. They're also original, and they leak at about 5 cubic feet per second per day. So from each of the 223-inch diameter penstocks, those two, their butterfly valves leak, and that leakage is passed through the penstock and discharged through those 2 drainage pipes that you see here.
Evaporation loss, just for this dam alone, can be a few hundred acre-feet per month, especially when the dam is more full. At the beginning of summer, it's quite full, and there's a lot of loss. There's a lot of surface area and a lot of evaporation loss. In the wintertime, like now, the The pool is much smaller behind the dam, and there's maybe only 100 acre-feet or so of loss.
Well, here at the sanitation districts, we handle the waste of 5 million people, both the solid waste and also the liquid waste produced, and to the tune of about 500 million gallons a day of wastewater. Most of it is treated at our joint plant in Carson, discharged out in the ocean, but we've built a system of 10 water reclamation plants where we take about 200 million gallons a day of wastewater, treat it to a high level, and actually reuse about 40% of that total.
This water is just straight from the dam. When it goes to the committee in their distribution network, that's where it would get treated before it's used. I mean, if you live in the San Gabriel Valley, I mean, a lot of the residents in the valley are served from water from this dam. So you could be drinking the water that's coming out of this dam.
Hi, my name is Mark Velasquez, and I'm an engineering associate with the Main San Gabriel Basin Water Master. The Water Master is a 9-member court-appointed agency who manages the quality and the quantity of the basin's groundwater, which supplies water to approximately 1.2 million people in the San Gabriel Basin.
That's the main benefit of this water right now.
Water recharge?
Groundwater recharge. They have to lower the water level in the dams in the mountains in the early winter, late fall, so that they can hold the incoming winter's rain. So a lot of this water is let out in anticipation of rain, and whenever they need water for groundwater recharge, they do it periodically throughout the year.
And this is
Pectocaria, or comb burr. It's not a particularly showy plant, but it's a native wildflower. This is the juvenile form. It actually has leaves that are covered with very silvery fine hairs. As the plant grows more mature, the leaves fall off and it becomes sort of this green twiggy plant called scale broom. The plant can photosynthesize with the green stems. It doesn't need the leaves as it matures. These leaves tend to happen in the springtime when it's moister. Later through the year it loses its leaves. This plant is one of the primary indicator plants of an alluvial floodplain habitat.
Pumping is regulated and accounted for when producers that supply water to the public and to other agencies pump groundwater from the basin. It needs to be managed so that their overdraft doesn't take place. Overdraft is when more water is pumped out of the groundwater basin than comes back in through natural recharge, or what spreading grounds are designed for, to infiltrate water back into the groundwater basin and recharge the groundwater. The Water Master, Main San Gabriel Basin Water Master, sets yearly an operating safe yield that determines, taking into consideration rainfall from the previous years and storage behind our reservoirs that we're here today. They set the operating safe yield and they determine that to be what's not going to be detrimental and probably cause subsidence or a drought or shortage. When overdraft occurs, pumping costs increase and water quality probably diminishes.
It's important for people to know that all water is recycled water. There's no new water. It's the same water we've had for the last 3 billion years that life has been on this planet. Ever since the first bacteria, water has been used by life, by living organisms, discharged, eliminated, removed, cleaned by nature, and then reused by the next organism. On and on it goes. What we do with water recycling, in particular groundwater recharge, is take water that's been used, clean it up to a high level, a level that meets current state and federal drinking water standards. It's that clean. Put it on the ground, allow it to percolate in the soil, mix with other sources of water that might not even be as clean as our water supply, but they're considered natural sources because they're coming from rivers or streams. It goes into the ground, it gets into sand, rock formation, and somewhere downstream somebody will pump it out, clean it again, filter it out, disinfect it, and it's perfectly safe to use.
Agriculture put lots of chemicals, in this case fertilizers, on the ground to enhance their citrus crops, oranges and lemons and such, and we're paying the price for it now. the nitrates, which are part of the fertilizers, work their way down into the groundwater, and in many cases you can't use the water now because it's got high nitrates. Other issues that usually come up, the one that's in the papers now is arsenic. Arsenic actually, in general, is naturally occurring, but that doesn't make it any less of a risk. It actually is a very, very significant cause of cancer. There's a kind of a horrible example in Bangladesh of through the best of intentions, UNICEF paid to shift from surface water supplies, which were making people sick from waterborne disease, to shallow groundwater wells. Well, nobody tested the water for arsenic, and now literally hundreds of thousands of people have died or will die because of cancer.
Let me clarify that. Let's see. Water quality could be affected by a lot of things. Mostly, we're concerned about water quality from a standpoint that's already in the ground and preventing from further contamination. There's a lot of areas, as you know, the main San Gabriel Basin is a Superfund site. There's volatile organic compounds, and in some areas there's nitrates, high nitrate levels. They just didn't get there by accident. They come from past industrial and agricultural practices that led to this contamination.
Now, there's absolutely no chance of any rainfall. There's not going to be any rainfall runoff. Imported water is not available to be purchased and spread. And the 3 dams that are collecting water from runoff in the San Gabriel Mountains are essentially empty. So this water, the reclaimed water, is the only game in town, the only water we have available to fill up our underground water supply in the aquifers. After about 12 hours of treatment, so this water is actually went down somebody's toilet about I'll say 10 o'clock last night.
I think the public realizes that this is, they're just doing it. It's more sophisticated than it has been in the past, but it's, we've been drinking toilet water for millions of years.
And only about 2 or 3 of you that seem to think driving and drinking water is all right.
Little Rock Dam that has their issue of a toad in their area, okay, an amphibian. Each one of those places has an animal or a plant that is in the direct path of the OHVer, okay?
I don't know how this came about, but they say it's fine to run up and down the banks of this reservoir. Again, you look over there after that 1.5 inches of rain we had Saturday, you'll see how the ruts have washed. That washes down into our drinking water, and then the taxpayers every 2 or 3 years pay to have all that dirt moved out of here again. It's been going on for years. Not only the ORV area, but we have campgrounds up here where they've dumped millions and millions of tons of scuff coat off the highways, right in the floodplain.
Is one issue which will probably become an alternative for this area is eliminating the OHV area. And that, I tied in that riparian vegetation question about wildlife corridors. It's definitely an issue. Generally the public should bring it up, but since no one will, I wrote it down and I'll submit it. It will probably be an alternative that'll be analyzed in the forest plan. One other one that is being proposed is that this whole canyon become a national rec area, which means no OHV, no rec residences, no people sitting in the streams. Basically, very, very limited usage. So those are 2 alternatives you'll see developed in the forest plan, and that's come from meetings like this. Unfortunately, the public won't submit them, so I take notes and I submit them.
This whole area is underwater, and the riparian area changes every year. This stream doesn't stay in the same bed. It moves back and forth every year, and up here, if you come up during the winter, you'll see how far the water went up. And when the water drains down in the summertime, you'll see that everything's changed.
Pharmaceutical compounds and endocrine disruptors that might come in to treatment plants such as this via the sewage. People taking antibiotics, estrogen and synthetic estrogen, getting into the sewer system, getting into the treatment plants, passing through, getting out into the environment. That's a fairly new subject. There are really no answers as to what's in the water leaving the plants. We have some preliminary information that shows that the concentrations are extremely low in the parts per trillion range. There's just no idea of what kind of effect this might have in the environment. People that might ingest the water somewhere down the stream, how it's removed.
What we have here now is so far removed from the natural process and been so heavily impacted by man's involvement that it can't sustain itself unless we have a very active hand in managing it. Otherwise, what we have here just won't be able to persist on its own.
Once the people moved here, when we hit the capacity of the local groundwater to meet the needs, we went out and got more water. We, Southern California. Those of you that have seen the movie Chinatown, that's kind of a parable of going out to get water from first the Owens Valley, then the Colorado River, and then finally Northern California. How that was done is an interesting history lesson, but the net result is that the region now imports 2/3 of its supplies.
But I mean, people waste stuff all the time, and science is always there to get us out of jams. I mean, we believe that. I believe that. I mean, we're really that clever, aren't we?
Oh, yes, we are.
You see? No problem.
When I became a man, my mother's words were all ignored. I learned to serve my company and members of the board. We dumped our toxic chemicals in waters far and near, and yet at night my mother's voice still whispered in my ear, "Son, waste not, want not is the lesson I would teach. Let conservation be your guide and practice what you preach. Do not let the river unnoticed tumble by, for you never miss the water till the well runs dry."
It carries silts and nutrients to the land and to the mother of life, the eternal sea. But what has happened to the San Gabriel River? It's time to look at this journey to the sea a little closely. Let's return to the water's source. Or starting point, if you will. Here, back on the mountain, we believe that there is just plenty of water to waste, and that we can fix the bad things we do to our water with science and technology. Here, in Southern California, we take water from other counties and states to quench our vast needs. But because Nevada, Arizona, New Mexico and Mexico have had large population growth, they want their share of Colorado River water. Without Colorado's water, Los Angeles and San Diego would be windswept deserts. We also get water from the Sacramento San Joaquin River Delta.
San Joaquin River.
Sacramento San Joaquin River Delta. That area's population is growing by leaps and bounds, but in future they too may be demanding that we stop using their water. So what do we have left? Thank you.
Trouble the water, wade in the water, wade in the water, children, wade in the water. God's gonna trouble the water.
Okay, I am Bruce Kuhn with the Imperial Irrigation District. I sit on the Board of Directors of Division 2. Here to try to give a brief synopsis of why we are and what made us and where we came from in history, a bit of our history. Hopefully, without big city spin on it, you'll get a truer depiction of how we made this valley grow and what made it grow. And what we have is several balers here to bale the Sudan and the alfalfa, to which most of it goes to the Chino area. A lot of the Sudan ends up in Japan, but majority of this alfalfa goes to the Chino dairies to feed the cows that supply the milk for most of Southern and Northern California. Got cauliflower harvesting with a custom contractor. When we want to put a face on things, if you want to see those who will be the most adversely impacted by taking of water or transferring of water or diverting water, these are the people that are impacted. And Rogelio, again, has worked here 13 years, put his kids through the university so they don't have to work in the field, but he couldn't have done that had he not had this job and this particular opportunity, to which he seized and expounded on it and done very well. And now his children truly have the American dream, even if they choose to live in Mexico.
My name is Maria Manus, and I work for Manus Farms, which is run by my husband. And the farm was first started in 1924 when my father came to the Imperial Valley and started farming. My husband and I are now the second generation on this family farm, and my son is presently working here too, and my daughter plans to come back after college.
The subject has come up about the impacts of fallowing to valley life or the valley economy. And the fallowing to which we speak in the negotiated settlement is here for 15 years, and it ramps up. It's not so drastic, and it disappears in 15 years, goes away as per contract. We could live with that. The fallowing to which we are speaking to today is a fallowing that would occur should the Department of Interior and Bureau of Reclamation be successful in keeping the provisions of the cut that they imposed upon us a couple weeks ago. that would be permanent, would be forever, and that would not go away, which would have economic devastating results here in Imperial Valley.
You know, the price of water goes up, and some of these crops just won't be profitable enough to support the increased costs, and some of these crops just won't be able to be grown down here anymore, and that's the bottom line.
Last I heard, they weren't feeding grapes, and they weren't feeding dates, and they weren't feeding acorns or cashews to the cattle up there in those dairies. They're feeding them hay. And if the price of hay goes through the roof, if you think $2.50 for a gallon of milk is high, wait till you're paying $10 for it.
And not to say, but it's really kind of how I feel, and that's how I would argue with a city person. I'm not saying, you know, I'm rich and I'm successful and I'm making all this money. I don't want the water cut, but if they do cut it, I think I'm going to be profitable because it's going to cut supply, and that means higher prices in the grocery stores, and they're going to pay for it. And it'll serve them right, because nothing's free.
In the beginning, before this canal was built, before the Boulder Canyon project, before Hoover Dam, the ag agencies, Palo Verde Irrigation District, IID, PBID, Yuma projects, we had water rights to 7 million acre feet from the river. This predates law. It predates law of the river, it predates state law, it predates federal law. In order for us to have the assurance that we would have 3.85 in the ag entitlement for California under the Boulder Canyon Project Act, we were asked to give up about half that water rights for the assurance that the 3.85 would forever be behind that dam for use in the ag agency. And that was done. The entire state was then appropriated 4.4 million, but 3.85 of that was for the ag entitlement. Since then, as California grew, they have been drawing more than the 4.4 total. Fortunately, it was not us. We're using the same amount as we were 25, 30 years ago. But Metropolitan Water District has been using more than their apportionment. Arizona wasn't using theirs. Metropolitan used it.
Rapidly, as the population grew, we used all the groundwater that we had naturally flowing in each year through rainfall. So over time, to continue growth, the region looked outside and looked to import the water.
In 1998, Arizona began using their full apportionment, and so Metropolitan found themselves using water that was no longer theirs. So the Bureau of Reclamation, and acting through the Department of Interior, said that they were going to hold California to their 4.4. In order to do that, without creating some sort of void in the Metropolitan Colorado River Aqueduct, it was going to take real water. That real water had to come from someplace. So we unfortunately found ourselves in the unenviable position of being the focal point.
First, Los Angeles went to the Owens Valley through the Los Angeles Aqueduct, and that was in the early 1900s. When we hit the limits of that, then the region looked to the Colorado River for additional water, and we hit the limits of what it could provide from the Colorado. And finally, we built the state project system, and now the additional water needed for the region comes in from Northern California through the California Aqueduct. So not only do we have the natural water, but we've also got these three major aqueduct systems that bring water in.
They've turned to us to solve what basically is a California problem, and we're willing to do that, but we're certainly not willing to do it at the expense of our local economy and our way of life. We had a efficiency-based conservation transfer put together for 1998, signed with San Diego, ready to go, and the environmental ramifications to the Salton Sea became an issue. And then we were told, not asked, we were told that we would do it through a fallowing program. And fallowing was strictly prohibited in the first agreement. So again, we found ourselves in the unenviable position of seeing our way of life and our economy being negatively impacted.
And then finally now, in the more recent past, the last 10 years or so, a lot of the water needs have been met through things like conservation, reclamation, and most recently there's a lot of interest in desalting seawater.
And again, if they have 20 years, as they have now publicly professed to have, What was this drill all about, and why did they beat us over the head, and why is the state threatening to take our water away, and why is the federal government cutting us to 2.858?
And if you've seen the movie Chinatown, that is it's a depiction of one of the early attempts to get water in from the outside.
Please don't move that stumbling mount. Lead me, Lord, around it. My burdens, they get so heavy. Seems more than I can bear. But I won't give up. No, no, 'cause you promised me you'd meet me at the altar of prayer. Lord, don't move that mountain. Give me strength to climb it. Please don't move that stumbling mount. Lead me, Lord, around it. Please don't move that stumbling mount. Lead me, Lord, around it.
I thought the public hearing was going to be closed, but the testimony today has invoked two significant policy questions that I would like to speak to that I think Newhall Ranch presents exemplary solutions to. And I encourage those who are speaking so vehemently in opposition to this project to be careful what you ask for.
To account the fact that we're reaching the limits of our precious natural heritage in this county.
19,000 new permanent jobs will be created, 7 new public schools, 3 new fire stations, 1 public library.
The two topics I want to address are how we deal with our endangered species issues in a comprehensive way.
6,000 acres of permanent open space, which is nearly 10 square miles.
And I encourage those who are speaking so vehemently in opposition to this project to be careful what you ask for. To be careful what you ask for. To be careful what you ask for.
How many vehicular trips in the AM peak? How long would it take you to review those numbers? During the hour of the public hearing, would you be able to review them again? Just a study around here somewhere?
I don't have it with me. I have to see what's available. Now I speak from first-hand knowledge of the pressures that this development is putting upon the landscape up in Santa Clarita Valley, having lived in the old Glory Oak Tree for a couple months back over the winter.
As to the endangered species, I spend a great deal of my time on the Endangered Species Act and the implementation. I meet about every 6 weeks with the Carlsbad Office of the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service.
More pollution. That pollution will lead to greater risks to our children's health through asthma.
And to punish the major landowners by bringing forward a comprehensive vision.
We need to build 25,000 homes a year to meet our demand.
And what concerns me is what appears to be a rush to approve this when it's such a massive project I mean, and it defies logic that a board that would sue the county of Ventura over Amundsen Ranch, which is 1/6 the size of this, would be in such a hurry to rush this through.
We are on a course that is demonstrably wrong.
Unfortunately, extreme no-growth activists present misleading, inaccurate, inflammatory, quote-unquote information in an attempt to stop all development. That over 70% of the growth that happens in our county is from births or deaths.
Snowball's chance in hell that 90% of the AMP traffic generated in this area is going to stay in this area. Not a chance in hell. It's not possible.
It incentivizes piecemealing of land holdings to be sold off in smaller projects that have isolated, they still have to mitigate border environmental projects, but they're in much smaller pieces. And I recently heard a representative of the Department of Fish and Game refer to these small pieces as extinction pockets because they get isolated amongst other parts of development. We cannot preserve on an ecosystem-wide basis. I encourage those who are speaking so vehemently in opposition to this project to be careful what you ask for. To be careful what you ask for.
We got to stop this at some point.
Located immediately behind me is an illustration of the type of homes that are being proposed to be built on the Bolsa Chica Mesa, much to the opposition of neighbors and members of the Huntington Beach community. Bolsa Chica State Beach, a beautiful sand beach that runs for about 9 miles. It's owned by the state of California. These homes receive their household water supply from the city of Huntington Beach, which is obligated to provide water services to all city residents. The oil field has been in production since the 1920s. It's still a producing field. The City of Huntington Beach has taken a position through its city council to not provide water to the future proposed development on the Bolsa Chica Mesa because the city is opposed to the development. These huge $800,000 custom-built homes. How are they going to get water to the future development on the mesa? The developer, Hearthside Homes, has proposed buying water from a private water company located in the city of Cypress, 11 miles from this location. And they'll run a pipeline, a water pipeline, all the way down from north to south, all the way down to the coast at a cost of nearly $11 million to bring water to this site so that they can then tell the planning authorities at the county that yes, we do have a water supply and we're going to go ahead and build the houses on this Bolsa Chica Mesa.
This area illustrates one of the problems the Corps has had in competing interests of flood control versus habitat restoration. Here you have a channel that's been channelized back in the early 40s, which is historically the way the Corps did flood control. Congress mandated and gave the Corps the mission of providing flood control to the nation. So what the Corps is thinking about doing is allowing regulatory more of a role in reviewing Corps projects. The idea being to inject the regulatory branch or the regulatory expertise into Corps projects to make them more environmentally friendly and better overall projects. And I guess what we're seeing now is kind of a change where instead of building one type of habitat, what we're doing is looking at maybe 2 or 3 different requirements for mitigation. As an example, if you have a large housing development project, we're looking at 2 or 3 different kinds of mitigation. Number one being water quality, where you have water quality treatment ponds, which are either on-site or immediately downstream off-site. The idea of those are basically for water quality. Now, habitat versus water quality, you really can't have both because in a water quality treatment wetland, as you see out here, you always have to do some kind of maintenance or manipulation. So the idea is you provide a water quality treatment wetland, but that has maintenance. So then you have to now create the habitat. So a lot of times what we're doing is creating the habitat in either mitigation banks or in specific areas that tie into corridors or replace or restore habitat in corridors that increase linkages. So trying to create more larger mitigation areas versus a larger number of smaller ones. The smaller ones didn't work. Then finally the third component is really preservation. In a lot of cases we're looking at preservation of habitat because really the best way to keep our existing habitat is not to let more development. And if it's on private land, if we can get somebody to preserve it in perpetuity, now that's set aside. We don't have to worry about somebody developing it later or things like that. So the idea is now mitigation, there might be multiple components rather than one single mitigation area. Water quality, habitat, and then maybe preservation long term.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Mr. Sudell. Well, I mean, maybe in a couple of years, the water will be back. Right, glass of water. Thank you very much. So, I mean, don't you see the water that we're throwing into the ocean is it's bloody nasty. Sorry. Hey, get away from there! Can't you read?
Some receiving waters in the U.S., large parts of coastal California, for example, have been impaired by pollutants carried in stormwater runoff. It's not the case that the pollutants originate with the rainfall itself, but the rainfall or precipitation of whatever kind contacts pollutants that originate with our urban activities, our fairly dense activities in urban areas, and carries those pollutants into receiving waters where we have, in some cases, an impairment. It causes harm to wildlife, to other beneficial uses, maybe to irrigation, maybe to drinking water, depending on the uses of the water. And urban runoff has been proven to be one of the important sources of water quality impairment in our country today.
As there aren't TMDLs on certain water bodies, including the Huntington Harbor, we don't have TMDLs, so it's difficult for us to go inland and say, you need to clean up your water, it's coming into our community. We have like 6 channels that flow through Huntington Beach. There are actually 13 watersheds in Orange County, and we are working toward getting the county, and the county is very interested in this, informing what they call joint powers authorities, so that these 13 watersheds would form alliances. So you might have, half a dozen to a dozen cities in each watershed, and they would pool their resources and deal with the urban runoff collectively.
So, let's see what we have in here. Grease from cars, asbestos from brakes lining from cars, unknown stuff, pesticides, herbicides, toxic heavy metals, and do I have to say this? Quickly. Dog poo. And other nasty, other yucky stuff, which is just dumped in this gutter. I mean, it's excuse me.
We acknowledge that it was not the sewers that contributed to the beach closures, and pretty much, you're off probation. But it did raise public awareness that we need to pay more attention to water quality, and it did kind of force us into the forefront as far as the region goes, that this could happen to you if you're not careful. And all this kind of seemed to come to a head at the same time that the State Water Quality Control Board was beginning to enforce the Clean Water Act, and coming out with the new NPDES permits, which will force all cities to deal with urban runoff.
We try to put all of this in context. One of the issues that my research group has been looking at is how the water quality here in Orange County has been changing over the last 50 years. And using as an index for water quality the indicator bacteria concentrations in the surf zone. And we're pretty lucky in a way, because there's a 50-year record of indicator bacteria concentrations in the surf zone that we can dig up and look into. And what we find is that there have been periods of time when there was a really well-known source of pollution which had a very measurable impact in the surf zone. And let me give you an example. In the late 1960s, the sanitation district here treated the sewage from Orange County and discharged it through a very short outfall, just went about a a mile offshore. And it became pretty obvious at one point that that was impacting the beach. They were getting grease back up on the beach and high bacterial counts. And so the regional board, there was an equivalent of the regional board at the time, issued a cease and desist order. And one of the first things that the sanitation district did is they went and they put a diffuser on the end of that pipe. Now, diffuser is supposed to increase the near field mixing, reduce the local concentration of the sewage as it comes out of the pipe. And so one would think that when you reduce the concentration, you reduce the impact. Well, it had almost the exact opposite effect. For whatever reason, the diffuser actually very efficiently mixed the sewage right into the surf zone. And so as soon as they put that diffuser on, the concentrations of bacteria in the surf zone went sky high. And they really had that problem here for a number of years until about 1971 or 72 when the sanitation district installed a very, very large outfall that went 4.5, 5 miles offshore. And as soon as they did that, the bacterial signal went away and water quality cleaned up.
How often do we see successes? Yeah. We've had a huge success here in Huntington Beach with the, we took on the Orange County Sanitation District, and we had them move from a situation where they were releasing effluent out into the ocean. And what we've done is we've made them basically own up to living up to the requirements in the 1972 Clean Water Act by actually going from they call mixed primary effluent to a secondary product. That's a huge victory, but can we say that necessarily Surfrider did that? We did it ourselves. From my perspective, I can't say that. I really don't feel that Surfrider did it. I know that Don has been working 10 years at it. He's working 10 years, and only within the last 2 years did we finally get the groundswell of public backing to actually make it happen.
We really have to get the people educated in order to have a consensus that builds to a better community. If we are not always the protagonists, we are the strongest, one of the strongest supporters for the groundwater replenishment system. In fact, we're probably the first national environmental group that supported it. That was just after hours and hours and hours of research on what it was all about. So I think we can be their best enemy and their worst friend. I think that's our role as an NGO, as an environmental group.
Wetlands have been known as the kidneys of the land. They clean the water for inland aquifers and for oceans, don't they? That is right, Dr. Ambrose, isn't it? I mean, they still do that, right?
Really, if you're talking about what the capabilities of wetlands are for cleaning up pollutants, they are capable of cleaning up pollutants, but if you look at our landscape now, there's not very much left for them, not many wetlands left to do this function. So one of the things that's happened in, say, the San Gabriel River watershed is that there used to be wetlands, riparian systems, all along the water course, and throughout that water course, as runoff would come down, it would move through these wetland habitats, or it would move through a vegetated area, would infiltrate into the ground. It could be, some of the pollutants could either be attached to particles in the ground, or they could be taken up by plants, and because the wetlands were extensive throughout the landscape, they would have a big impact. But what we've done, of course, is we have removed almost all of that, and we've replaced it with concrete, and concrete doesn't clean up pollutants very well. And so instead it just transmits the pollutants down to a place like Bolsa Chica. And now Bolsa Chica has some capacity to try to improve water quality, but basically not very much. I mean, I think it's pretty much overloaded. And in fact, the studies that we've been doing on toxicity shows that those studies were on sediment toxicity. So we took sediment samples to see whether the water that's in the sediment is toxic or not, and many times it is. And so that gives you an idea that the wetlands have taken up some of these contaminants, but although they may still be taking some up, what they're doing is it's loading up and it's actually impacting the functioning of the wetland. So at this point, what's coming into the wetland is more than the wetland can assimilate.
But I mean, our government should be doing things to protect us. That's what we pay them for, isn't it? water. I need some water. Water. Oh, no! Oh. Sorry.
Basically, we have the Bolsa Chica has really two big options as far as alternatives as far as we're concerned. One is the inlet option, which basically makes it so that the Port of Long Beach can mitigate for all the halibut nursing areas that they've lost, and so they're going to create a wetland that is absolutely not even close to anything that has ever been there, and historically they're going to create a wetland that's a deep water wetland. And that wetland has never been a deep water wetland. Maybe deep water during storm events, yes, I'd agree with that. Deep water during storm events, it definitely happened. But I mean, those storm events go away within maybe a week and a half. Then it's back to what it really is, which is a very, very shallow water wetland.
It's artificially made salt water.
And so what they're going to create is something that is, yeah, they're destroying a wetland to make a wetland, is what one guy said, and I love that. That's a good image. And the only way that they can go about doing that is they need to, in order to create their halibut farm, they need to have enough water circulating in their halibut farm on a regular enough basis that the little halibut don't perish. You know, so in order to do that, they need to have everyday tidal flushing. And the only way to get that everyday tidal flushing is through the inlet.
I hate to see an inlet be put out there and cutting through the Bolsa Chica beach there. Not just because of the pollution, but the loss of recreation. The surfers use that. It is one of the cleanest beaches we have along the coast. I keep thinking there's got to be another way to bring salt water into the Bolsa Chica without having to do this channel. It just seems, I know it may be more expensive, but sometimes, maybe we just haven't developed the technology yet to be able to figure out a way to do it. But
in fact, I came across this. Within the highlands, they've built a number of houses up there, and they now have 4 cases of cancerous brain tumors in kids that are caused by, and I don't know what the thing is. It's not PCP, but it's PCT. It is a PCPs?
Yeah.
It is a PCPs. So it's a PCPs.
Is orders of magnitude higher than what's allowed in the California ocean plants, even higher than what's off the shelf.
Exactly. So
San
anyway,
Gabriel.
they got 4 cases in this one area right in Huntington Beach, and of course the EPA has come out and said, there's nothing directly correlatable to the PCPs, where the data shows that there's only 100 other cases throughout the entirety of the nation. But funny thing, 4 cases all in Huntington Beach, all associated with this special type of tumor that is directly correlatable to the PCPs. So what are they going to do? Now what they're going to do, they're going to go in, they're going to create this deep wetland. How are they going to do it? They're going to dredge it. What does that mean? They're going to pull up all this stuff that's been sitting there for years with all the oil residues, and they're going to remediate it. And we just recently had a CD of how they're going to go about it. We haven't been able to look at it in any detail. I don't know how they're going to go about doing the process, but be that as it may, I'll be very surprised if I see that indeed the PCP issue is going to be addressed in any great detail. What they will do with all this remediated sand is they're going to immediately take it out, and they'll have the picture. The nice thing that they're going to do about it, of course they're going to have the inlet, and they're going to dig all this stuff, and of course they're going to take all this stuff and put it out there. And check it out. Check it out. They're going to put out here this place that basically Bolsa Chica right here, little ankle snappers even on a big day, even South Swell. Yeah, they're kind of nice, but check it out. They're going to put a reef out here. Perfect reef. We're talking about cloud break waves. We're talking like you get a north swell or south swell, it's going to be rideable, rights, lefts, going to be the kind. But
they're going to get artificial surfers to surf the artificial reefs and catch
No, you're going to get real surfers out there, but they're going to find out that it's called Cancer Reef.
Yeah, that's
right. It's Cancer Reef in the making.
Do you remember me telling you about aquifers and wells? We used to only be able to pump water from a couple of 100 feet down. Now we pump into deep 1,000-foot wells. We dig deep because we need to. Do you know what it is? Do you think what's in some of that deep water, especially in the San Gabriel, it's perchlorate. Do you know what perchlorate is? Perchlorate, that's something that was used by our aerospace industries and defense industries. It's from rocket fuel stuff. God. And do you know why it gets into our aquifer?
Aquifer.
Why it gets into our aquifer? Because the industry leaders and their politicians got the lawmakers of California to make it okay. They knew it was wrong back in the 50s, but they didn't do anything.
Cost that their pollution, which they've profited from, has imposed on all the rest of us and on our water system.
I'd like to address that back to the EPA wanting to begin assessing what's in effect a user charge on anybody that potentially can impair waters of the federal government. Our board at Metropolitan, for example, currently has a very lively discussion going with respect to perchlorate. We have a perchlorate issue that originates in Henderson, Nevada, where we are getting levels of perchlorate that in time may exceed new EPA standards for this constituent.
What's the big problem right here?
Well, it's a very big problem in the San Gabriel Valley, and it's really beginning to raise the specter in certain regions of the state, particularly in the San Gabriel Valley, of regulatory drought, where the water has certain constituents like perchlorate to the point where even if you have the water underground, because of the standards and the very legitimate standards that the health authorities are setting, you are having to fallow our water supply. And who pays for that, and what are the social consequences that are paid for that? Let me give you an example. We have a potential issue, for example, with uranium tailings in Moab, Utah. There's these uranium tailings that sit within a few hundred feet of the Colorado River. In a 100-year flood scenario, all that could wash into the river. Now, it would cost about an estimated $300 million to move that water, those tailings, it's 11 stories high, into a location where it wouldn't come in contact with the water. We estimate that if it does wash into the river, you're seeing a cost of about $15 billion to treat that amongst the states. Not to imagine what it does, for example, to public confidence.
Dr. Collins, how can this percolate affect us? Well, can Mother Nature clean up the mess?
This company actually called me up and said, would I be willing to be a peer reviewer of some studies that had been done in the area of developmental toxicology that were in fact done by another company. And this was a U.S. EPA panel that was being put together by this company in order to review all the toxicology as it relates to perchlorate, both the human toxicology, namely the epidemiological studies, as well as animal toxicology studies that had been done on perchlorate.
There's a certain kind of aquifer under this flood control basin. So if the flood control basin is like this, looking from the side, and the river's going through it like this, well, underneath there's also a certain body of water. At any rate, in the Whittier Narrows Basin, for the last five and a few more years, there's been EPA has been involved with putting in monitoring wells at different locations in the basin, as well as below the basin, downstream of the basin, and upstream of the basin, but putting in monitoring wells at different groundwater elevations below the ground to determine, to chemically test the water, how do you define the plume that is underground? How do you define the envelope of contaminated water?
My role is that portions of the San Gabriel Valley, so the area between here and the Whittier Narrows to the south, have areas of groundwater contamination from historical industrial activity in the valley, dating back mostly to the 1940s and 50s. There's a number of large areas of groundwater contamination, and it's a big deal because the groundwater in the valley is the main source of water for people in the valley. It's the main source of drinking water for about 1 million people in the valley. And there really are no good alternatives to the groundwater basin as a source of drinking water.
What perchlorate does is that it binds to a protein. It's found in the membrane. Well, it's found in a number of different types of membranes, but it's predominantly found in the thyroid gland. It is a membrane protein called the sodium iodide symporter. So it's a protein that takes sodium and iodide anions and takes them from outside of the cell and puts them on the inside of the cell. What it appears that perchlorate does is that it in some way inhibits that transport of iodine. Now that's important because in the thyroid gland you need iodide to make thyroid hormones. There are a couple substances. One is called T3, and that's because it has 3 iodide or iodine atoms associated with it, and T4, which has 4 iodine atoms associated with it. So these particular thyroid hormones are created by having sufficient iodide to make the hormone. What happens when you have perchlorate, from my understanding, is you inhibit this symporter because it means both sodium and iodide are going in the same transport mode across the membrane. It's my understanding from this meeting that perchlorate inhibits this protein, preventing iodide from getting in there.
I know, I know, I've got a solution. Okay, we use seawater and take all the salt out. Huh?
Toxic waste.
Toxic waste?
Yep.
I thought all that stuff in the seawater was just brine and salts, not toxic.
Brine is toxic waste.
So we can't just dump it someplace, because if we do that, then it causes a wasteland with toxic dust.
Right.
The EPA study found that there is a plume of contamination that's moving slowly toward the south. Their goal is to treat the water as much as possible before it goes south into the central basin.
Part of the difficulty relates to the fact that we're not totally in tune, or we're not knowledgeable of all the roles of the thyroid hormone plays in the fetus. And it seems to play a multitude of different kinds of roles. So that leads us to be at a quandary in terms of what kind of biological endpoints should be monitored. And I can tell you that at least at the meeting, one of the more sensitive biological endpoints had to do with growth of brain.
Do you know who uses so much of our water? Farmers! So farmers, just stop using so much damn water. Because farm produce is important to California's economy. They provide food for the hungry nation. Oh, sure, I know that!
The contributors to the contamination problem, are they a wide variety of
It's a wide variety of companies. We've identified throughout the valley probably more than 100 companies that we think have contributed. Different types of companies.
A number of them are aerospace companies that date back to the 1940s and 50s, which is when I think a lot of this area first started to industrialize.
That's for toilet cycle water.
But getting back to thyroid hormone, much like many of the nuclear hormones, we don't understand all the functions of these various hormones, all the cellular functions that they have. So there's some concern that we're missing the appropriate sensitive endpoint. And we just don't know.
The wars and the industries of wars, governments letting people dump stuff, letting developers divert stuff and cut down stuff. The government cement stuff. Here are some interviews with some people. Stuffy people.
Hi there. Could you please talk to us about that recent spill?
No, you're going to have to leave. Yes, can I help you?
Yeah, could you talk to us about the recent spill?
I don't know about a spill. No, well, please leave.
Hi there. Could we talk about the spill that happened on your property?
What spill? There's no spill around here.
The spill that's all out there, all those trucks out there?
There's no spill on my property.
There was in the LA Times.
No, I don't know what you're referring to.
All the stuff that went down. Could you talk about
How
what
did
was
you get
in
on this?
that?
How did you get here?
Do you realize what the consequences of what it goes down
I don't have
into
time
the
for
storm
this,
drains,
okay?
goes all the way out to the ocean?
I don't have time for you. Damn environmentalists keep bugging me when I'm trying to make a buck. You guys get off my property now. Environmentalists, man. I'm going to eat a steak and drive my SUV and God, I can't believe these people keep bothering me. Damn!
So let's see. What can we do? How can we save ourselves? Well, here it is, folks. We can do nothing. Nothing. We're doomed. Doomed. You know what we can do? You know what I'm going to do? Eat worms and die.
Harry, wait, Harry, come back here. Come here. Come on. It's all right.
No point, Paul.
No, come back. Sit down. Sit.
No point.
Sit. Well, Harry, I know things are bad. And they're probably going to get worse.
I mean, things are so bad, you know, but I have this sinking feeling that I've missed something, Paul, you know, like the elephant in the room kind of thing.
Oh, you mean like how the population keeps increasing and more people want more water. Did you know every person in California uses 175 gallons a day? Oh, and Harry, did I mention global warming? Oh, wait. Here you go. Just breathe in. There, that's better.
You're just trying to make me feel better. You know, Paul, what I want is science, you know? I want technology. I want to be able to do something about it. I want to stop it, Paul!
Harry, technology can only go so far. In the 50s, why, they predicted that today we'd be flying around in our own personal spaceships, traveling from planet to planet. Are we?
No.
Have we found a cure for cancer?
No.
The common cold?
Well, they tried. At least I did.
Harry, Harry, but there is hope. Have you heard of the butterfly effect?
Oh, you're talking about the Mothra theory, right?
No, no, no. Say there's a butterfly in Oxnard that flies from flower to flower, and it stirs up the atmosphere around it, and then that stirs up the atmosphere, and that goes on till...
What, there's a tornado in Texas?
No, but it does change the weather on the planet Earth.
Oh, great, great, great. You're telling me that if I don't flush my toilet 2 times, my water rates will be lower?
No, it will not show as lower water rates, but there'll be that much more water for the produce in the central valleys. Do you understand?
Yeah, I do, but I want something big to happen!
Well, how about getting a big, low-pressure shower head?
Oh, thanks a lot!
Oh, now, Harry, really, think of it this way. You're one butterfly that makes these little changes. You're not the only one. There are lots of butterflies, all of them making little changes that soon become a big change, and we can find a solution.
Yeah?
Yeah.